If everyone could find their seats, we'll get started in just a moment. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 12th Annual Community Inclusion Awards here in Braintree. Now, you may be thinking, wait, didn't we last do this in 2019? And you'd be right. These awards have been on a bit of an unplanned hiatus, but tonight they are back, and I couldn't be more thrilled. When I unexpectedly stepped into the role of co-chair of Braintree SECAP this past October, I had never heard of the Inclusion Awards. That is until Kristen Zachello, a former CPAC chair, casually mentioned them in passing. And something about that idea just stuck with me. I thought, we need to bring this back. Fast forward to April, when Julianne Quintiliani emailed me and asked, are the Inclusion Awards happening this year? And I thought, why not give it a try? I reached out to Mayor Erin Joyce, who some of you know from her Hollis days, and when her husband Mike saw the email and passed it along, she responded quickly with her signature enthusiasm and said, go for it. She connected me with her amazing team, and the ball got rolling. Now, in the past, this event has had a team of 5 or 6 people working on it starting in January. This year, it's June 12th. I started in April. I told Mayor Joyce, I'm gonna do this Hollis PTO mom style. For those not in the know, that means quickly, and it's gotta be good. Of course, I also reached out to Lynn McFlail, who helped run these awards in all those earlier years. She was incredibly generous with her time and passed along so much helpful information about how things used to be done and what to include. Lynn, thank you for being such a great resource and part of this tradition. So it might not look exactly like it did before, but what really matters is still here. Tonight is all about honoring 8 incredible individuals who have created spaces where disabled and non-disabled people can participate together. These people have made Braintree more welcoming, more inclusive, and more whole. Their stories are powerful, and tonight we celebrate them. So as many of you already know, there was a slight change to our original program. Mayor Erin Joyce made her welcome speech during our reception instead of what's listed on our program. So now it is my absolute honor to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, someone whose advocacy, persistence, and deep knowledge have made a lasting impact, not just in Braintree, but across the broader disability community. Crystal Evans is a powerful voice for disability rights. She has served on Braintree's Commission on Disabilities, and she's a tireless advocate for access and inclusion, working every day to bring attention to the needs of people who use wheelchairs and other mobility devices. Whether she's fighting for curb cuts, accessible spaces, or equitable policies, Crystal is a force for progress and a champion for change. She also brings with her a vast knowledge of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the legal and historical framework that underpins the rights of people with disabilities in our country. Her work reminds us how far we've come and how much more we can do when we truly listen and work together. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, the passionate and unstoppable Crystal Evans.
Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. And my screen goes dark. There we go. As you enter Braintree on Washington Street by the Quincy line, there is a sign that reads, "We are an inclusion community." Over the years, I've heard discussion about this sign and adults asking what it's supposed to mean. Inclusion wasn't yet an educational concept in the 70s and 80s when many of the people I've spoken with went to school. People with disabilities were still being institutionalized or segregated in education. So after being asked to speak tonight, I asked several of Braintree's youth over the past few weeks, what is inclusion? A few made statements like, I saw it on a poster, or I heard someone say it at school, or I think it's about something about diversity, though none of them could explain what the actual meaning of the word inclusion is. Inclusion is a term that is often thrown around like a buzzword, or in recent years has been lumped into DEI or misused. So tonight, I want to take a step back in time and share the story of the fight for educational and community inclusion, both locally and nationally, and how that brought us to where we are for the rights of this generation of youth with disabilities. It was 1949 when Judy Heumann contracted polio at 18 months of age, taking away her ability to walk. Judy was raised in New York City, and when she was 5, her mother took her to the local elementary school to enroll her into kindergarten. But being the 1950s, the school building was not accessible, so Judy's mom carried her up the stairs where she was met by the principal and immediately denied access to school because they viewed her as a fire hazard. Instead, the school district sent a teacher to her house for only 2.5 hours a week. Judy's family spent several years fighting the New York City school system for educational access before they finally allowed her to attend in 4th grade in a segregated school for disabled students. After several years of attending school in person, when it came time for high school, she was once again told she couldn't attend because none of the high schools in New York City in the early 1960s were accessible. But Judy was one of tens of thousands of children who contracted polio during the outbreaks in the late 1940s and early 1950s. So Judy's family worked with other families with disabled teens and went to the Board of Education demanding that they make some of the high schools in New York City accessible. And they did. For the first time, she was able to go to a regular school. From there, she went to college in Long Island, New York to become a teacher. But when it was time to go for her teaching license, she had to take a written exam, an oral exam, and a medical exam. All the exams were given in a completely inaccessible building, so her friends carried her up and down the stairs so she could take her exams. But the doctor administering the medical exam failed her because she couldn't walk, which prevented her from getting her teacher's license. She took on the Board of Education and she got another medical exam and ultimately got her teacher's license and got a job teaching at the same school she attended as a child. In her early 20s, Judy started an organization called Disabled in Action and was leading the disability rights movement in New York. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, another polio survivor, Ed Roberts, was in Berkeley, California, leading the beginnings of the independent living movement. Ed had contracted polio at age 14, and because he needed an iron lung, he attended classes by listening over the telephone. His school later refused to allow him to graduate because he was unable to complete driver's education or his physical education credits. Like Judy, he fought for his diploma and won and was accepted to UC Berkeley. The school then tried to reverse his acceptance when they realized he was a quadriplegic, but again, he fought and won and became the first student on campus to use a wheelchair. 3 more students enrolled at UC Berkeley in wheelchairs, and the 4 of them lived in a dorm together and called themselves the Rolling Quads. They worked together to get the college to design more accessible classrooms and dorms. The work the Rolling Quads did inspired Ed to create a community in Berkeley where people with disabilities could live as independently as possible. In 1972, the first independent living center in the country was founded in Berkeley, California. Around this time, Ed Roberts heard about the disability rights work Judy Heumann was doing in New York City and invited her to come out to Berkeley as they were forming the beginnings of the independent living movement. Meanwhile, in Massachusetts, Judy Hoyt was a mother also fighting for educational access for her son, Rick, who had cerebral palsy. Yes, this is the same Rick Hoyt from the Boston Marathon father-son duo, Team Hoyt. Judy worked tirelessly with Massachusetts politicians to help draft the legislation known as Chapter 766, or the Massachusetts Special Education Law, which passed in 1972 and helped bring thousands of Massachusetts youth access to more inclusive educational settings. Also in Massachusetts was Charlie Carr, a 19-year-old who became a quadriplegic after a diving accident at Revere Beach in 1968 at age 15. After a spinal cord injury, Charlie was forced to go to Mass Hospital School in Canton, an institutional school to complete high school. Upon graduation, he was then institutionalized at Middlesex County Hospital. It was at Middlesex County Hospital in 1972 where Charlie became phone buddies with Ed Roberts in Berkeley, California. Ed would tell Charlie about the groundwork for independent living they were doing in Berkeley and about their dorm setup the Rolling Quads created on campus. This inspired Charlie to develop a program known as Wellington Hall at Middlesex County Hospital. At the same time, 3 other disability leaders in Boston, Fred Fay, Paul Cochran, and Elmer Bartels, were organizing to begin the second independent living center in the country. And in 1974, Boston Center for Independent Living was opened. Fred was mentoring Charlie, and while institutionalized, Charlie co-wrote the proposal for the Massachusetts Personal Care, or PCA, attendant program, but the state refused. Charlie and a group of others wanting independence from institutionalization held a sit-in at the Boston Department of Health, Education, and Welfare office when the state finally decided to negotiate, allowing a trial of the PCA model in 1975 through Boston Center for Independent Living with just a few individuals. Charlie was chosen to be one of them. This was his ticket to freedom from institutionalization. Today, the PCA program now serves more than 40,000 individuals across Massachusetts. Meanwhile, back in Berkeley, Judy Heumann was approached by Senator Harrison Williams from New Jersey to come work in his office in Washington, D.C. Judy agreed, and his team of staffers were working on the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, which was based on Chapter 766 legislation from Massachusetts. Judy used her own lived experience in helping create the law, and the federal law passed in 1975. The EHA would later become known as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. After a year and a half in D.C., Judy relocated back to Berkeley to take on the role of Deputy Director at the Independent Living Center in Berkeley. While Judy was in D.C. working on legislation, another civil rights and disability rights leader emerged near Berkeley in Oakland, California, Brad Lomax. Brad grew up at the height of the civil rights movement, where he watched his mother march with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In college, he joined the Black Panthers and was also diagnosed as a young man with multiple sclerosis and was a wheelchair user. Brad saw what Ed had accomplished with his independent living center and wanted to do the same for Oakland, to serve the predominantly Black families in that area, knowing this was a project that the Black Panthers would help support. Ed helped Brad establish the East Oakland Center for Independent Living in 1975. 2 years earlier, the first civil rights legislation protecting people with disabilities was passed, known as the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which also provided accommodations for students with disabilities in school. Disability activists like Ed Roberts, Judy Heumann, Brad Lomax, and Charlie Carr were closely monitoring the progress, or lack thereof, in the implementation of the Rehab Act of 1973. By 1977, the federal government had still not issued regulations for Section 504 of the Rehab Act, so the disability activists across the country started organizing to protest nationally. On April 5, 1977, disability activists began a sit-in at the Health, Education, and Welfare offices across the country in Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, New York City, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. At many offices, protesters were forced to leave within the first few days, but the sit-in at the San Francisco Federal Building, led by Judy Heumann, lasted 26 days. Amongst the 150 disability activists at that location was Brad Lomax. The Black Panthers were strong supporters of Brad's disability justice work and came in not just to support him, but to support all of the members of the 504 sit-in by bringing meals, medical supplies, assisting with personal care, as well as helping the protesters gain national media coverage. On day 3 of the sit-in, the Black Panthers issued a statement. Along with all fair and good-thinking people, the Black Panther Party gives full support to Section 504 of the Rehab Act of 1973 and calls for President Carter and Hughes Secretary Califano to sign the guidelines for implementation as negotiated and agreed to on January 21st of this year. The issue here is basic human rights, rights of meaningful employment, of education, of basic human survival of an oppressed minority, the disabled and handicapped. Further, we deplore the treatment accorded to the occupants of the fourth floor and join them in full solidarity. A couple weeks into the sit-in, when leaders decided it was time to send a group of activists directly to DC for meetings, the Black Panthers helped cover the cost for transportation for Brad and others to go. Finally, on April 28, 1977, they won their fight, and regulations for Section 504 of the Rehab Act were finally signed into law. And yes, this is the origins of the 504 plans used educationally. 504 states, no otherwise qualified handicapped individual in the United States shall solely on the basis of his handicap be excluded from participation, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. After the independent living and disability rights movement started taking off nationally, there was one thing people with disabilities were lacking that would truly give them independence and freedom in their community: transportation. So disability activists who called themselves the Gang of 19 in Denver, Colorado, set out to do just that: draw attention to the lack of access on Denver's buses. RTD, their transit system, had recently ordered 250 buses, all of which without wheelchair lifts. Wheelchair users would not be able to ride the bus. On July 5th and 6th, 1978, they went and blocked an intersection for Denver's buses with their wheelchairs so that no one could use them, chanting, "We will ride," until representatives of the Regional Transportation District were willing to talk about Denver's lack of wheelchair-accessible buses. They slept on the streets surrounding the buses. After 2 days, their protest made national news, and they were satisfied they raised awareness on these access barriers. This protest would eventually lead to the passing of the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act and ensured similar protests around the country of disabled individuals shutting down transit systems continued into the 1980s across the country, including Boston for MBTA access. But this initial protest brought many types of discrimination and abuse faced by the disabled community into the spotlight. The group that started this movement later became known as ADAPT, which still exists today as a disability rights group that often uses civil disobedience to get awareness on issues or legislation that impacts people with disabilities. The independent living movement continued to spread nationally, so in 1982, the National Council for Independent Living was formed, co-founded by Charlie Carr. Another founding member was John Chappell, who also served as the first vice president. In 1984, after founding Virginia's first independent living center, John Chappell moved to Braintree, Massachusetts, to take a job as the director of the newly established Independent Living Division for Mass Rehab, now known as Massability, where he worked until he retired as deputy commissioner in 2010. During his time as a Braintree resident in the 80s, John helped organizing locally on disability issues within our community, and shortly after, Braintree established the Braintree Commission of the Handicapped, now known as the Commission on Disabilities. The original commission had 7 members and 4 alternates and was very active on starting to monitor access issues in our community in the 1980s, before the ADA. Charlie Carr was appointed by Governor Patrick to be the Commissioner of Mass Rehab in 2007, where he worked with John Chappell. Programs Mass Rehab runs under Chapter 688 help support our youth transition out of programs in Braintree Public Schools such as Strives, Prove, and Waves, and into adult services and with independent living supports. After several years of fighting to get the Americans with Disabilities Act passed, but having to go up against corporations, fighting because they didn't want to have to pay for providing access, the disability community knew they had to get creative to have their voices heard. So on March 12, 1990, hundreds of people, including many from the Boston area, participated in the Wheels of Justice March from the White House to the Capitol to protest the ADA's slow movement through Congress. At the Capitol, dozens of disability activists left behind their wheelchairs and began pulling themselves up the 83 steps to the Capitol building. The Capitol crawl got the attention of Congress, and within weeks, the ADA was finally passed. On July 26, 1990, George H.W. Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, watched by many local and national leaders in the disability rights movement. In the crowd included Judy Heumann, Ed Roberts, Charlie Carr, John Chappell, and Braintree Commission of the Handicap member Jonathan Smith. From his speech at the ceremony, well-known quote is, "With today's signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, every man, woman, and child with a disability can now pass through once closed doors into a bright new era of equality, independence, and freedom. Let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down." The signing of the ADA was a landmark moment in the history of disability rights, as it aimed to eliminate discrimination against individuals with disabilities in a way that included employment, public accommodations, transportation access, and more. In 1990, Congress reauthorized Education for All Handicapped Children, the EHA, and changed the title to Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. In 1999, Olmsted VLC established that unjustified segregation of people with disabilities is a form of discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and gave people with disabilities a right to receive state-funded services and supports in their community rather than being institutionalized. This was a landmark case that mandated integration and allowed many more individuals to transition out of the institutions with the right to live, work, and participate in their community. My final stop on the timeline of the fight for inclusion is another groundbreaking settlement under the ADA that has direct positive impact for our community as a whole here in Braintree. In 2002, a group of 11 riders and Boston Center for Independent Living, represented by Greater Boston Legal Services, sued the MBTA for systematic failure to provide basic, necessary public transportation services for people with disabilities. In 2006, the class action lawsuit, Daniels-Feingold et al. V. MBTA, was settled and the work began. A collaboration between the plaintiffs, the MBTA, and Judge Patrick King, who serves as the settlement's independent monitor, not only to bring the Greater Boston transit system into ADA compliance, but to build a transit system that is truly inclusive to all. Nearly 20 years later, this settlement continues to be a work in progress. Later on tonight, you'll learn more about the progress it's made, as the name of the lawsuit may look familiar, as the lead plaintiff, who it's named for, is Joanne Daniels-Feingold, a Braintree resident who has taken the lead on improving access and inclusion for all riders on the T, and she will be awarded tonight. Like the MBTA settlement, over the past few decades, we've come so far on disability rights, moving from exclusion to segregation to integration. But integration isn't where we stop. We need real inclusion in an environment that makes individuals feel like they belong. Inclusion is a verb, an action around creating and maintaining an environment where all individuals feel valued, respected, have equitable access, and the same opportunities as their peers. And belonging is the emotional state of feeling accepted and valued within that inclusive environment. Without an inclusive environment, it will likely make it difficult for individuals to have a sense of belonging. To be an inclusion community means we need to be working together to address barriers to inclusion for all members of our community. The disability rights and independent living movements have embraced the slogan, "Nothing about us without us," emphasizing that no decision should be made about a marginalized group of people without their direct involvement and input. Representation matters. When making policy changes or decisions and structural changes such as construction and renovations, give people with disabilities a seat at the table and allow their lived experiences to be a voice in the decision making. We need to recognize and address disparities in inclusion faced by marginal groups, such as low-income households, as well as racial and ethnic minorities. Thomas Hare, the former director of the Special Education Programs for U.S. Education Department, when IDEA was reauthorized, went on to be a professor at Harvard School of Education until his death from ALS in 2022. Thomas did a lot of research on equity issues in special education, including research on disparities for DESE. Multiple studies he published in his final decade of life of both local and national data showed that poor kids are being served in special education at relatively high numbers, almost twice the rate you would expect in the population in general. Similarly, his research titled Racial Differences in Special Education Identification and Placement showed that while racial and ethnic minorities are not diagnosed with special needs more often than others, they often end up in separate classrooms at higher rates, the study found. African American students are twice as likely. Thomas Harris said, "We were surprised, frankly, at the degree to which kids with these disability categories in Massachusetts are still segregated. Providing accessibility ensures systems and environments are usable for individuals with disabilities, from captioning videos, addressing digital accessibility, to ensuring wheelchair access in our community, as well as providing policies at town level for implementing accessibility at town events and activities. As individuals, we can all make a difference on accessibility to improve inclusion in our community in small ways, from shoveling your sidewalks in the winter with enough width for a wheelchair user to pass through, to not parking on sidewalks or blocking curb cuts, and leaving accessible parking spots for those who rely on them. Make sure your trash carts are placed in a way that doesn't hinder access and are removed in a timely manner. You can also help improve access by reporting ADA violations or degrading infrastructure on the See-Click-Fix app to the town. We've come a long way over the past 50 years, but there's still more work to do. Now I'll turn it over to Rebecca to begin recognizing leaders in inclusion in our community."
Before we begin presenting the awards, I'd like to take a moment to share how things will go. For each of our 8 amazing award recipients, there will be a short speech highlighting their incredible contributions to inclusion in our community. After each speech, we'll take a moment for a round of applause, and then we'll invite the recipient to come up to the podium or to the table, where Beth Brown from the CPAC board will present them with their certificate. Beth. At that point, you're welcome to say a few brief remarks at the microphone if you'd like, but there's absolutely no pressure. This is your moment to do what feels right for you. Feel free to take pictures throughout the evening. This is a celebration, and we want you to capture it. And finally, after all of the awards have been presented, we'll invite all of our recipients back up to the front for one big group photo to wrap up the evening together. So let's get started celebrating our 2025 Community Inclusion Award recipients. So before we begin honoring our individual award recipients, I just want to take a moment to talk about the award itself. So our first award is the Community Inclusion Award. This award is given to a first-time honoree, someone who has taken meaningful steps to foster inclusion within our community. Recipients of this award have created spaces where people with and without disabilities can participate, learn, work, and grow together. They model what it looks like when inclusion is not just a concept, but a lived value, something practiced in classrooms, workplaces, neighborhoods, and beyond. Each of our Community Inclusion Award winners has helped to break down barriers and build connections. They remind us that when we make room for everyone, we all benefit. It is with great pride, deep gratitude, and heartfelt admiration that we present our first Community Inclusion Award to someone who has made an extraordinary and lasting impact, Julianne Quintiliani. This award is given to someone who exemplifies the spirit of inclusion, someone who goes above and beyond to ensure that individuals with and without disabilities can participate together in authentic, joyful, and transformative ways. Julianne, who many of us know simply as Miss Q, is the very definition of inclusion in action. She selflessly devotes her time, energy, and heart to ensuring that every child, regardless of ability, has equal opportunity to participate in the kinds of experiences most people take for granted. Whether she's coordinating events, coaching, mentoring, or leading, Julianne brings people together with compassion and purpose. For many years, she was Mary's right hand during Super Saturdays, an incredible program that creates social opportunities for students with disabilities. Not only did she help run the program, but she also took on the Sprint for Super Saturdays road race, which raises funds to help keep costs low for families. Because of her efforts, more children and young adults with disabilities have access to meaningful social connections that might not otherwise happen. At Braintree High School, Julianne leads the Best Buddies program, where she models what it means to be a true mentor, not just to students with disabilities, but to every student involved. She builds a culture of friendship, respect, and mutual growth. One small but powerful example: Julianne helped 2 students organize a promposal for Jessica and her friend Joel. It may have seemed like a small gesture, but it meant the world to the students and their families. She also brought inclusive sports to Braintree High School by starting the unified basketball and unified track teams. These are not just teams, they are communities. Under Julianne's guidance, every athlete is recognized, supported, and celebrated. She connects with each student as an individual while always treating them as equals. Her leadership doesn't stop at the high school. As director of the integrated preschool, she's nurturing inclusion from the very beginning, supporting students with all levels of need and forming strong partnerships with families. She leads the preschool faculty with care and dedication and plays an active role on the district leadership team. And when it comes to community events, Julianne is always thinking about accessibility. She suggested a wheelchair-accessible fire truck to a school event and advocated for a sensory-friendly hour at a touch-a-truck gathering, ensuring no child feels excluded and every child gets to be part of the fun. Julianne lives and breathes inclusion. Her impact ripples across classrooms, hallways, sports fields, and homes. She leads with kindness, patience, and determination, and she helps others to do the same. If you ask around, you'll hear story after story about how Julianne has touched someone's life. Her work may often happen behind the scenes, but the results are impossible to miss. Stronger connections, more inclusive spaces, and a school community where every student has the chance to shine. Tonight, we are honored to recognize Julianne Quintiliani with the Community Inclusion Award, a small tribute to someone who is making a huge difference every single day. Please join me in congratulating her.
Get my speech in here. All right, good evening, everyone. I am honored and humbled to receive the Inclusion Award from the Braintree Special Ed Advisory Council. I am filled with gratitude, not just for this recognition, but to be part of a community that believes in the importance of inclusion. I'd like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to all the other honorees tonight. Together we share a common commitment to creating a more inclusive and supportive Braintree. I wanted to thank Rebecca Young for all her hard work in the committee for putting this event together and bringing it back after 6+ years. Inclusion is not a single act, it's a commitment. It's a daily decision to see every individual as valuable, capable, and worthy of belonging. In Braintree, I've witnessed firsthand how powerful the commitment can be when educators, parents, administrators, and neighbors come together to ensure that all children are seen, heard, and celebrated. With my 20-plus years being an educator here in Braintree, I've seen time and time again how this community steps up, not always with a lot of resources, but always with a lot of heart. This award also belongs to the students who remind us that differences make us stronger, to the teachers, staff, who all go above and beyond to make sure every kid is supported, seen, and celebrated, and to the families who show up with courage, questions, and hope. You are the reason that we keep on pushing forward. So thank you. I accept this award with pride, gratitude, and a promise to keep showing. Sorry, Mr. Mack, I'm going to be all over you on keeping these most vulnerable kids at the top of your priority. To keep listening, learning, and advocating to build the kindness of an inclusive community every child deserves here in Braintree. Thank you.
Tonight, we have come together to honor individuals who don't just talk about inclusion, they live it. People who look at their community and ask, how can I make this a place where everyone belongs? One of those remarkable individuals is Melissa Lucia. Melissa is many things: a mother of 3, an educator, a volunteer, and a champion of inclusion in everything she does. By day, she teaches at the Braintree Integrated Preschool, a school dedicated to serving students with disabilities, while also creating meaningful opportunities for them to learn and play alongside their non-disabled peers. It's a place where all children are supported, challenged, and celebrated. And it's no surprise that Melissa thrives in such a setting, because inclusion isn't just part of her job, it's part of who she is. What truly stands out about Melissa is how seamlessly she carries that same inclusive spirit beyond the classroom and into the broader community. Take for example, her work with the Liberty School PTO. This past year, Melissa co-chaired the school's very first Someone Special dance. For many, it was a fun evening to connect with family and friends. But for Melissa, it was also a chance to ask, who might feel left out of this experience, and how can we change that? Thanks to her leadership, the event included a sensory-friendly hour at the very start, an intentional time with fewer crowds, less noise, and a more relaxed atmosphere. Melissa wanted to ensure that students who are often overwhelmed by large, overstimulating events could feel safe and included. She even arranged for rugs to be donated so that students could enjoy bubbles, a sensory favorite, without the risk of slipping on the floor. It's a small detail maybe, but it shows you the kind of person Melissa is. She doesn't just think about what's fun, she thinks about what's possible for every child. And that thoughtfulness made a real impact. One parent reached out after the event and shared something powerful, that this was the only school-sponsored event that she had ever been able to attend with her son. Other events had simply been too overwhelming for him, but because of Melissa's efforts, this family was able to be part of the school community in a way that felt joyful, safe, and welcoming. That's inclusion in action. And it doesn't stop there. Melissa continues to bring ideas to the Liberty PTO, always asking how events can be more inclusive, more accessible, and more reflective of the amazing diversity within the school. Melissa reminds us that inclusion doesn't just happen. It takes effort, it takes care, and it takes people who are willing to ask hard questions, offer new ideas, and put in the work to make sure no one is left behind. Whether in the classroom or on the PTO, she models what it means to lead with empathy, to plan with intention, and to act with heart. Melissa, your work is creating real change in the lives of students, families, and the broader community. You show us what it looks like when we center equity and compassion in everything we do, and you inspire those around you to do the same. It is my great privilege to present you with a 2025 Community Inclusion Award. Please join me in celebrating Melissa Lucia.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Rebecca Young and the entire CPAC board members for organizing this wonderful event and bringing it back. I have to say I was quite surprised when I started getting congratulatory messages before I even knew I'd been nominated for this awesome award. This time of year is always a whirlwind for educators, but I just want to say how truly honored I am to receive the Community Inclusion Award tonight. My passion for inclusion has always run deep. I have been so fortunate to be able to do the work I love and see it all come to life. Just today, I received a message from a former student's family updating me on how well their child is doing transitioning from one classroom to another. And seeing students learn alongside one another and finding meaningful ways to connect, nothing is better than that. So to be recognized for something that feels so close to who I am is incredibly humbling. But I also know that everything I've had a chance to be a part of has happened because of the people around me. My colleagues who share this mission, my students who always inspire me, and my family who always has my back. If you are an educated family, you know what I'm talking about. My daughters Ava, Charlotte, and Brooke spend countless hours in my classroom after school. My husband Mark, without fail, every year sets my classroom up with me. And my parents, in my early years of education, patiently watched as I figured out my path to being an educator. And my extended family, who watches my kids so that I can be there for my classroom kids. Truly takes a village. And thank you to my friends who pushed me to grow and dream a little bigger. A special acknowledgement to Kelly Sweeney for nominating me. In her leadership as the Liberty Elementary PTO president, she has helped me bring some of my ideas and passion for inclusion outside of the classroom. And in my classroom and in life, I like to say that everyone is working towards something, myself included. There just may be a different path for everyone to get there. A world that is more accessible and inclusive is better for all. And finally, to the incredible educators and community members in the room tonight, thank you for the work that you do. Real change happens when we do it together. Thank you so much.
I'd like to welcome Julianne Quintiliani up to award our next recipient.
This is so small, Rebecca. No, I'm not kidding. It's such a joy to be here tonight to celebrate the remarkable individual who are each helping to shape our community in places where everyone belongs. There are people who live the values of inclusion, not just in the words, but in the actions day after day. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing one of these inspiring individuals, Jenna Capadona. A senior at Braintree High School whose compassion, dedication, and leadership has made her a driving force for inclusion in her school community. When I first read the nomination for Jenna, one line stood out immediately. Or should I read that? Jenna Capadona is a true definition of inclusion, and it's true. If you were to look it up in the dictionary, inclusion, you'll find the definition like this: the action or state of including or of being included with a group or structure, or the practice of providing equal access to opportunity for people who might otherwise be excluded. Now, let's meet Jenna. She's someone who's not only understanding this definition, but lives it every single day. As a student intern in the Prove Wave program at Braintree High School, Jenna spends countless hours supporting students with significant intellectual disabilities. These programs focus on functional academics, vocational training, and inclusive experiences, things that are critical for helping every student grow and succeed. Jenna brings patience, warmth, and respect into every moment she spends in these classrooms. She doesn't just assist, she connects. She creates a space where all students feel seen, valued, and welcomed. She brings the same energy to her role as co-president of the Best Buddies program and club, where she helps lead activities, plans monthly events, and fosters genuine friendships between these students of all abilities. Whether it's a game night, a group activity, or just time spent talking and laughing together, Jenna is there making sure that every student feels like they belong. And on the unified track team, Jenna's leadership and empathy are just as visible. She runs beside her teammates, offering a listening ear, and leads by example. In every setting, whether it's on the track, in the classroom, or in the halls, Jenna quietly but powerfully communicates the same message. She says, "You belong here." What makes Jenna so special isn't just the program she's involved in, it's how she shows up. She leads with kindness, she builds bridges through empathy, and she reminds us that inclusion isn't about the grand gestures. It's about the constant, caring choice to make room for others. It's about the moments when someone feels seen, understood, and accepted just as they are. Driven by compassion and guided by her deep belief in the power of connections, Jenna is more than just a volunteer. She's a role model. She shows us that creating an inclusive world starts with small things: offering a smile, lending a hand, or simply being a presence for someone else. And her impact, it stretches far beyond the students she works directly with. Her influence can be felt in the culture of the school, when friendships have been formed, perspectives have been shifted, and the spirit of inclusion continues to grow because of her example. In time when inclusion is more important than ever, Jenna Capadona reminds us that real changes doesn't always come from the top down. It comes from people like her, showing up day after day with open hearts and open minds. Jenna epitomizes the true definition of inclusion, not just in what she does, but who she is. Please join me in celebrating and congratulating Jenna Capadona as a recipient of this year's Community Inclusion Award.
It is both an honor and a privilege to stand here today to recognize someone whose daily work and unwavering dedication have left a profound and lasting impact on our school community, a true champion of inclusion and equity for all students, especially those with disabilities. This evening, we celebrate Tim McDonald, or as so many affectionately call him, Mr. Mac. A leader whose actions speak louder than any title. He has made it his mission to ensure that every student, regardless of ability, is not only seen and heard, but deeply valued. In everything he does, Mr. Mack reminds us that inclusion isn't a checkbox. It's a mindset, a daily practice, and a culture rooted in dignity, belonging, and opportunity. When general education teachers needed more tools to support diverse learners, Mr. Mack didn't wait for the system to catch up. He acted. He partnered with Puzzle Pieces, an ABA company, to bring professional development directly to his staff, equipping teachers at Hollis with the skills, understanding, and confidence needed to create classrooms where every learner could succeed. When the world shut down during COVID and many students with disabilities were at risk of falling through the cracks, Mr. Mack worked tirelessly to make sure those students didn't get left behind. He understood that inclusion doesn't take a break during a crisis. In fact, that's when it matters most. He rallied resources, offered creative solutions, and made sure students received the extra support they needed, even when the odds were stacked against them. Mr. Mack has also led the charge to make sure our school traditions, the moments that define our shared culture, are accessible to all. Whether it's having an opportunity to reflect on what we have to be grateful for, asking students what book they're reading during the assembly, or handing out principal place awards. He makes sure every student has a seat in the room, a voice in the celebration, and a role to play. He has redefined what it means to come together as a school, not just as a gathering, but as a reflection of who we are and who we want to be. And then there are the small moments, the ones that often go unnoticed but make all the difference. Mr. Mack is the one greeting students by name each morning. I should also mention, he knows their parents' names. He knows their grandparents' names. And he seems to know the names of every student who has ever been a student at Hollis since he has been principal. He attends every IEP meeting and takes time to truly listen to families and staff. He doesn't just ask what's needed, he asks what's possible. His leadership lives in these quiet, steady acts of connection and care. One of the most touching moments and symbolic traditions that he's fostered happens on the last day of school. As buses pull away for the summer, Mr. Mack makes sure that all students, whether on the big yellow buses or the mini buses, are waved off with the same love, respect, and celebration. He asks staff to wave to each and every student, ensuring that departure is a moment of belonging and pride. These aren't just gestures, they're statements. They say, you matter, you're part of this community, and we see you. It's no surprise that when he was being considered for superintendent, the outpouring of support from families, educators, and community members was overwhelming. One parent called him a gifted educator and a known commodity, while a retired teacher and grandparents said, we need that dedication and enthusiasm at the helm. Another community member simply put it, this town needs and deserves someone like him. These words speak to something we already know, that Mr. Mack's impact stretches far beyond the walls of a single school. So tonight, we don't just honor an individual, we honor a way of leading, a way of believing that every child deserves not just access, but welcome, not just services, but celebration. We honor a vision of education that is relational, equitable, and inclusive, one where every student is lifted, supported, and given the chance to thrive. Congratulations, Mr. Mack. Your work has not only fostered inclusion, it has sparked transformation. You have shown us what's possible when leadership is grounded in empathy, driven by justice, and carried out with heart. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for our students, our teachers, and our school community. Please join me in congratulating Mr. Mack.
Thank you very much. There we go. Was her name Rebecca? I couldn't remember her name. Oh, okay. I'm glad that Giuliano Quintiliani gave me the opportunity to speak. Is it okay if I get on the mic right now? Okay, good. No, I'm honored and humbled and very thankful and appreciative to receive this award tonight. I'm not sure if I believe all that you said about me, but I know my mother would, so thank you very much. You know, working at Hollis for many years, I'm going to try to give you a brief story of something that I've learned, and it tells you the importance of CPAC, Braintree SECAP, and I would like to thank you all for this event tonight and for this honor. Many times we sit as educators in IEP meetings, and we start speaking out in our educational jargon, our terminology, when parents and families are there sitting there. We forget sometimes they might not remember or know the statements that we're making or the terms that we're saying. And it reminds me of times when I go to the mechanic and I try to get my car fixed and I go out to talk to the mechanic and, you know, I've never been to automotive school, but when the mechanic says, you know, it's the XYZ valve, I go, oh yeah, that's right, that's what I thought it was, having no idea what they're talking about. And I think that's what happens often, unintentionally, in some of our meetings, our special education meetings. Parents don't want to say they don't understand what we're talking about, nor should they. But this is where the importance of CPAC comes in. CPAC has provided tremendous support and guidance to families over the years on how to read an IEP, how to look for important comments like accommodations and modifications and transportation and transitions between grades and schools and programs. They provided such valuable insight to families that cannot ever be dismissed. Also, they've gone out of their ways to provide speakers for families over the years so that families can go to the library or here some night and listen and learn about their special educational journey. So let's give a round of applause to CPAC, please. I'd like to obviously congratulate all the winners who are here tonight, all the recipients. As adults, I think it's important. It's really expected that we should be inclusive, but I think I really want to honor our recent high school graduate, Jenna, for her award tonight. To hear about a young student who is sacrificing her time with Best Buddies or the Unified Team or all the other events she's in, it's a testament not only to her, but to her parents and her family for all that she's done. So congratulations, best of luck at St. A's. As Rebecca said, I'm going to be starting a new journey starting July 1st as a superintendent of schools. And I was appointed by the school committee back in January. So the last 5 months have been a new tradition for me, new trajectory for me. And I'd like to honor someone who's not here tonight, and I'm sure he's glad he's not here because he's a person that would not want to be recognized or praised ever. He is our retiring superintendent, Jim Lee. For the last 5 months, I spent a ton of time with Mr. Lee. I've sat in him with meetings, talked about different things that are happening in the district. He's opened his doors and his mind to me, and he's been a great resource. And he's really modeled inclusivity to me. So let's give him a big round of applause, even though he's not here. And last but not least, I've been at Hollis School for 25 years, long time. 4 years as a teacher and 21 years as a principal. And it's going to be very hard to walk out those doors on June 30th. But I know I leave the school in great hands, mostly because, or all because, of the people. And I accept this award tonight in honor of the former and the current students at Hollis and the former and current staff members at Hollis who have been a beacon for inclusivity over the years. Thank you very much.
It is my privilege and heartfelt joy to present this Community Inclusion Award to someone whose presence truly transforms a room and a community through joy, compassion, and connection. Reverend Rachel Bickford of Union Congregational Church in Braintree. Now, many of you may know Reverend Rachel through her incredible service work. She is a disaster chaplain, a youth mental health advocate, a community leader, and a fierce voice for the most vulnerable among us. But tonight we honor her for something uniquely simple, yet deeply powerful, bringing people together through dance. Yes, dance. Several times a year, the fellowship hall at Union Church transforms into something magical. There's music, pizza, laughter, and the unmistakable hum of connection. But this isn't your average social event. These are inclusive dances created intentionally as welcoming spaces where people with disabilities and people without disabilities of all ages can come together to move, to laugh, and most of all, to belong. It started small, just 8 people, but word of joy spreads fast. Today, these dances draw more than 50 participants, including residents from area group homes, students from local schools, volunteers, families, and caregivers. And every time the room fills with something rare and precious, a sense of pure acceptance, where when the music starts, something extraordinary happens. All the usual barriers, labels, limitations, expectations, they melt away. Whether someone is twirling in circles, swaying in a wheelchair, or simply tapping their toes, everyone is dancing. Everyone is seen. Everyone is part of the community. There's a quote from the great dance pioneer Martha Graham, who said, "Dance is the hidden language of the soul. What Reverend Rachel has created is a space where every soul can speak freely, where joy is the only requirement, and where no one is left on the sidelines." But this isn't just about fun, though there's plenty of that, especially during the group performances of the YMCA, which I hear is legendary. These gatherings are about building real relationships. Youth group members from Union Church attend each dance, not just to volunteer, but to participate. They're encouraged to ask questions, listen deeply, and form friendships that cross every supposed divide. These young people are learning not just how to serve, but how to connect, how to be part of a truly inclusive community. And in the best moments, the ones filled with hugs from returning guests, the unfiltered laughter, the proud caregivers who see their loved ones shine, you can feel it. This is what inclusion looks like. This is what it feels like. And it's not just the dancing. Reverend Rachel's work touches nearly every corner of our community. She advocates for the homeless in Braintree and Boston. She supports disaster response teams and serves on the boards of elder housing, mental health services, and pastoral care. She's worked with the Appalachia Service Project, Habitat for Humanity, local shelters, and arts programs. She's a chaplain, a counselor, and a connector, and through it all, a tireless force for good. But amid all her work, these dances hold a special place, because for her, they are afternoons of what she calls complete joy. No politics, no pretense, just love, just presence, just people being together as they are. And maybe that's what makes Reverend Rachel Bickford so remarkable. In a world that often amplifies fear, separation, and stigma, she has chosen a different path. She chooses joy. She chooses welcome. She chooses to see every person as a beloved child of God, worthy of celebration, community, and belonging. So tonight, on behalf of us all, those whose lives have been changed, whose worlds have been opened, and whose spirits have been lifted, I say thank you. Thank you, Reverend Bickford, for building something so beautiful, so lasting, and so necessary. Thank you for dancing with us, and thank you for reminding us that real inclusion is not about programs or policies, it's about people. Congratulations on this well-deserved Community Inclusion Award. You inspire us all. Please join me in congratulating Reverend Rachel Bickford.
I will be back on my dancing feet soon, I promise you. I want to thank CPAC and Rebecca Young for this amazing award, and I really do want to also honor all of you who have participated and the members of Union Congregational Church. It did start small. It was a simple idea to a couple of youth group kids. What if? What if? What if we just chose love? And that made all the difference in the world. One of the greatest moments that I have had in these dances was coming back after COVID, and I'm going to choke up, where a couple of our folks came up to me and said, our last dance was the Valentine's Day dance before the world shut down. We missed you. We love you. And it was like nothing had happened in a moment of time as soon as the music began. We are so blessed to be able to be here in this community and do what we do, to be shining beacons of light and hope and possibility, and above all, to be listening and learning. That is the key to everything. I loved what, Crystal, what you shared. We need a voice at the table. And for too long, we haven't done that. What if this day starting now, everything changed and we invited everyone to be a part of what we do? It can start as simple as a dance. If I say to you, "Sweet Caroline," start your own dance or show up at ours. You're ready to go. Thank you so much for this award. It is such an honor and a privilege. Things start small, but they grow big in great, great love. I look forward to hearing more about the rest of the things that this community is doing, and we are so blessed to have you and your committee as a part of it. Thank you for this award. It truly is a great honor.
The next award is the Continuing Visionary Award. This honor is given to someone who has already received a Community Inclusion Award in the past and has continued to grow and expand their impact. This award recognizes individuals whose commitment to inclusion hasn't stopped at a single moment or achievement. Instead, their work has evolved over time, responding to new challenges and finding new ways to ensure that people with and without disabilities can fully participate in shared spaces and experiences. These honorees are visionaries in the truest sense, continually imagining that what inclusion can look like and putting that vision into action. It is an honor to stand before you to celebrate a remarkable individual whose vision, dedication, and heart have helped shape a more inclusive world, starting right within the walls of South Middle School. Tonight, we proudly present the Continuing Visionary Award to Melissa Ritchie, a trailblazer whose work has created lasting ripples of change, acceptance, and unity within our school and the wider Braintree community. Back in 2018, Ms. Ritchie was recognized for her outstanding efforts in promoting inclusivity. But what makes her story truly extraordinary is that she didn't stop there. She has continued to build upon that foundation, turning a one-time initiative into a lasting movement. Through her leadership with the Ambassadors Club, Ms. Ritchie has given students the tools and the confidence to become champions of inclusion. The club has become a powerful space where students learn about differences, build empathy, and develop the social skills needed to connect and thrive together, regardless of ability. But this is more than just a club. It's a culture shift. It's a message to every student at South that you belong here. It's an education in kindness, in respect, and in understanding. And it is a living, breathing example of what it looks like when someone carries a vision, not just for a moment, but over time, nurturing it, evolving it, and making it stronger with every passing year. The person who nominated Ms. Ritchie shared two wonderful examples of how her work has had an impact on the students and teachers at South. A teacher saw a beautiful example on the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. At one of the monuments, they ran into one of their Ames students who was visiting with his family. The ambassadors were thrilled to see him. They ran up, greeted him by name, and celebrated his presence. His family was visibly touched that a group of students from South not only recognized him, but embraced him. They took photos together, shared a moment of joy, and showed exactly what inclusion looks like in real life. Melissa has also been a model for the teacher who nominated her, showing her how to be more inclusive, how to make every student feel welcome and comfortable in her classroom, how to talk openly and respectfully about differing abilities, and how to advocate for more opportunities for our Ames and ABLE students. Her influence has helped her and so many others become better educators and better people. Miss Ritchie's commitment continues to touch lives. It echoes in the friendships formed in the hallways, the confidence built into the classrooms, and the way students support one another on and off campus. Her impact is woven into the fabric of our school and our community. So tonight we honor not just a leader, but a continuing visionary, someone who reminds us that inclusion is not a destination, but a journey. And thanks to Miss Ritchie, that journey is brighter, more compassionate, and filled with possibility. Please join me in congratulating Miss Ritchie, recipient of the Continuing Visionary Award.
Thank you. I'm so humbled to be here among all of you. Such an incredible crew of people. This town is a model for other towns. I'm actually on the CPAC board in Quincy, and we're always talking about Braintree and how we wish we were more like Braintree. How do you guys do it? Like this, I was talking to Miss Young. I'm like, it takes a lot of hard work to do it. And I see some previous ambassadors. Hi, Eva. So I'm just so proud to be here with all of you. And listening to that, I'm like, wow, I did do that, huh? And it's not hard when you're part of a community like Braintree. You know, you just show up to work every day and you just do what you do, and everybody around you makes it easy. So thank you again. I'm thrilled that the Ambassadors Club can be one of the many, many things that Braintree offers, from Super Saturdays to Special O, Unified Track, which I just learned about tonight, Challenger Baseball. It's just an incredible, incredible town. So thank you again.
Our next award is the Champion of Evolving Inclusion Award. This award is also given to someone who has previously been recognized for their commitment to inclusion, but whose efforts have continued to grow in meaningful and adaptive ways. This honoree has met new challenges with creativity and persistence, finding fresh opportunities to bring people with and without disabilities together. Their work shows us that inclusion is not a fixed destination, but a journey, one that requires us to listen, learn, and evolve. They are a true champion of inclusion that changes with the times, always striving to build a more welcoming and equitable community. It is a tremendous honor to stand here tonight and recognize a leader who embodies not just inclusion, but how to evolve it with intention, creativity, and care. Our Champion of Evolving Inclusion Award goes to Principal Stacy Soto of Flaherty Elementary School, whose daily work proves that when inclusion is truly lived, it changes lives, strengthens communities, and opens doors for everyone. Principal Soto is no stranger to the stage. She was previously honored with a Community Inclusion Award, and tonight we recognize her again, not simply for doing more of the same, but for expanding and deepening her work to meet new challenges, create new opportunities, and inspire others. At the heart of her leadership is this unwavering belief: every child and every adult in her school deserves to feel they belong, that they are seen, heard, and that they matter. That belief doesn't just live in her words, it lives in how she leads. From day one, Principal Soto made inclusion a cornerstone of Flaherty's culture. It isn't an add-on, it's embedded in school life, from morning announcements to assemblies, PTO events to professional development. She co-chairs the Bridges Committee, which creates joyful, community-centered events, uniting students, families, and staff across all backgrounds and abilities. She ensures that flyers and updates are translated into multiple languages so no one is left out. She's attentive to details others might overlook, knowing that accessibility starts with awareness. In a recent conversation I had the chance to learn something that captures her intentional approach. She described the difference between giving students real estate in a program and giving them true inclusion. Real estate, she said, is just space, but inclusion requires thoughtful design. so students with disabilities are not just present, but fully participating side by side with their peers. That philosophy is clear in her leadership. For example, during school-wide assemblies, some students struggle with loud noise. So Flaherty celebrates with silent cheers, clapping in the air, waves, or visual signals. A small shift, but one that says, "You matter. We thought about you. You belong here." And her work doesn't stop at the school doors. After school and PTO-sponsored events are designed with the same care. Environmental adjustments, visual supports, and added staffing make sure students in Ames and ABLE's programs can fully join in. She leads with empathy and teaches others to do the same. And as her school has grown in inclusive practices, Principal Soto has widened the circle, sharing strategies with other principals and modeling what evolving inclusion looks like in real time. Her influence reaches well beyond Flaherty, shaping how inclusion is practiced across the Braintree Public Schools. One of her nominators said, "She doesn't just talk about inclusion, she lives it." And that's exactly right. Her leadership is authentic, consistent, and courageous. Principal Soto's work reminds us inclusion is not static, it's dynamic. It requires reflection, flexibility, and heart. No matter how strong a system is, she keeps asking, who else needs to be welcomed in? What can we improve? Tonight, we thank her not only for what she's done, but for her continued commitment to this work, for meeting new challenges with creativity, and for helping others lead with inclusion at the center. Principal Soto, thank you for being a role model, a mentor, and a true community builder. Congratulations on this well-earned Champion of Evolving Inclusion Award. We can't wait to see where your leadership takes us next. Please join me in congratulating Stacy Soto.
Okay, so I've never met a microphone I don't like, but right now I'm feeling very intimidated because if there's any award that I could win, my son told me not to cry, sorry. If there's any award that I could win that means enough to me, it's the Inclusion Award. And the fact that my staff, I did not tell anyone, and they're all here, and the fact that they're including in that, that means the world to me, so thank you so much, Flaherty staff. Without you, there is no inclusion, right? So what I want to say is inclusion for me is not just a task. It's not something we check off the list. It is something that we do every single day. It's my core belief. It is who I am. It is who we all are at Flaherty, and we're very blessed to house programs at our school that allow our students to be inclusive right from the beginning, right from when they come in kindergarten. And I just want to say that it is not just, I was going to say the real estate thing, but whoever wrote this took that away from me because that's what I was going to say. Inclusion is not just real estate, and we say that all the time. It's about actually making everyone feel seen, heard, valued, appreciated, and important. Everyone matters. Everyone belongs to Flaherty. Everyone belongs in Braintree. Everyone belongs everywhere. And it's our job to help kids grow up with that belief because then it just makes our world a better place. And I just need to say that on a personal note, I want to thank my family for being here. And sorry, she gave me permission to say this, but I live inclusion every day of my life. And I just want to thank my daughter for teaching me bravery and showing me what it means to be who you are. And that's all that matters. And because of her, I really believe that we live inclusion, and my other kids as well. But thank you, Cara, for teaching us all what it means to truly be included. And now, before I leave, I need to take a balloon and bring it to my friend Wally for doing a hard thing and sitting through here. And he deserves a balloon. Can I take a balloon for Wally?
This year, as we As we reflect on the impact of so many remarkable individuals, we wanted to recognize someone whose vision and dedication to inclusion have reached far beyond our local community, shaping policies, programs, or practices at the state or national level. The Legacy Changemaker Award was created to honor such an individual, while our Community Inclusion Award celebrates those who have built welcoming spaces here at home. The Legacy Changemaker Award has created lasting change on a broader scale. They have fostered environments where people with and without disabilities can learn, grow, and thrive together, not just in one community, but across many. Their work is not only powerful, it is enduring. And tonight we are honored to recognize a leader whose legacy continues to open doors for others. I would like to welcome Crystal to tell the story of our Legacy Changemaker recipient.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Joanne Daniels Feingold has been a Braintree resident since 1997 and has fought fiercely for the access rights of people in our community as well as those across the Commonwealth. As a woman with a disability and a wheelchair user, she channeled her lived experience towards positive access changes not only in Braintree but across the state. Joanne is the lead plaintiff in the groundbreaking transportation class action lawsuit against the MBTA, Daniels Feingold et al. V. MBTA. This lawsuit, which was settled in April 2006, challenged the accessibility and usability of the MBTA services for people with disabilities and was filed under the Americans with Disabilities Act. During the initial stages of the lawsuit, to prove ADA violations, Joanne worked tirelessly with her attorneys at Greater Boston Legal Services. She carefully researched national and international transportation access standards, meticulously reviewed and analyzed thousands of MBTA passenger complaints, and she played a central role in undercover monitoring. As a result of Joanne and the team's work, in 2006, the MBTA signed a comprehensive settlement agreement, and since then has invested and estimated over $1 billion to improve public transportation access and services for disabilities. For the past 18 years, Joanne has held a lead role in the lawsuit, collaborating closely with her lawyers, the plaintiffs, and the T in enforcement. She has ensured the MBTA remains focused on the real needs of passengers with disabilities. For example, she took on the challenging task of testing MBTA buses, providing extensive feedback to the MBTA engineers on the space required by a wheelchair user to safely turn upon entering a bus. Examples of MBTA transportation access improvements Joanne has pushed for implementation of beyond physical and structural accessibility of stations include the creation of the System-Wide Accessibility Department in 2007, the Internal Access Monitoring Program, the formation of the Riders Transportation Access Group, improved elevator dependability, audible and visual stop announcements, improved wayfinding at stations, and addressing emergency preparedness for riders with disabilities. Joanne's priorities have always been centered on accessibility and advocating for people with disabilities to have every opportunity to be fully participating members of our community. As a result of Joanne's lived experience, technical knowledge, and her incredible leadership skills, she has advanced the cause of justice. Her advocacy has resulted in positive systemic access changes that benefit everyone. Over the past 19 years, Joanne Daniels Feingold has changed our local public transit system in a way that our youth will never have to experience the same barriers that adults with disabilities encountered for decades, with a T. Joanne has opened a new world of community accessibility and inclusion for them, to be able to use public transit both within our community as well as access to jobs, colleges, healthcare, social and recreational activities throughout the Greater Boston area.
Hi. I'm Joanne Daniels Feingold, and I was the first-name plaintiff of the accessibility suit. It's Something that I'm proud of. I'm also on the executive board of RTAG, which is the Riders Transportation Access Group, a group that's transitioning into what we as the plaintiffs group are going to be letting go of over the next couple of years. There's only well, let me just say what I wrote. April 2026 will mark 20 years since we signed the original settlement agreement with the MBTA and began next steps of creating a more accessible transportation system for everyone in the MBTA's service area. I've often said that this case will tie me to the T forever, and it turns out I wasn't wrong. Over the years, we've built a relationship that's meaningful and lasting. This groundbreaking settlement would not have been achieved without collaboration that we've had with many departments at the T and the resilient partnership with system-wide accessibility. From engineering to bus operations and beyond, we appreciate every department that's played a role in the transformation of the MBTA. Over the last 19 years, we've made tremendous strides toward transportation access. So many of the original commitments from the settlement have been met, and although a few remain, we're close to meeting the original goals and dedicated to continuing this work until we fulfill all the terms. We continue to hold the T accountable, knowing that real access requires consistent attention, feedback, and transparency. Together with the MBTA, we've worked on issues ranging from vehicle design, platform gaps, elevator uptime, and station staffing. We fought hard to bring the complaint system back in-house so that complaints could be more accurately noted and dealt with. One of the things that I'm proud of, too, is being representative of Braintree and the South Shore. Our needs and concerns are different from the inner city. And when it's time to speak up for Braintree, for our area, I do that. Our work continues through RTAG. Tom Gillen and I are on the executive board. He's one of the other named plaintiffs. And we've been working closely with the group to ensure that the voice of the community remains front and center. Our tag will be taking over from the plaintiffs group when we are substantially in compliance. We're not there yet. Under the leadership of Kat Torres-Razdick, our tag has been able to achieve many milestones, including working with the MBTA to address platform gaps, securing a grant to develop a working group of biking, disability, and pedestrian advocates to address bike lane issues, and introducing a bill to penalize transportation network drivers who discriminate against passengers with disabilities using service animals. RTAG and the broader community, in partnership with system-wide accessibility, look forward to the initiatives like hands-free fare gates for riders with limited upper level mobility. Named plaintiff Rob Park, son of Brad Park, great guy, tirelessly advocated for this, dreaming of the day that this project would come to life. Now, to see this initiative moving forward is a powerful reminder of the change we fought for all these years and how far we've come. I'm so glad that people in this generation don't have to live with things like Route 230 being a non-accessible route that didn't have accessible, we had lifts then. And Quincy and Lynn had the oldest buses in the fleet. And quite frankly, the ones that were supposed to be accessible weren't always because they just didn't work. You could look at the back right wheel of a bus, and you can see the odometer. And the odometer on most of the Quincy buses were over 1 million miles. When you've been driving something from 1984 to 2003, or 2006. It's going to get a few miles on it. I thank you for this award. I thank you for thinking of us. And believe me, I had an office at Greater Boston Legal Services for a few months just because I had so much work to do, and I had to have a place to do it. All of us who were named plaintiffs, and I want people to understand we just didn't sit there and do nothing. We all had research projects to do. Some of mine were like researching securements for wheelchairs. But the most important one was proving through information from the World Bank, a transportation company in London, and through Connecticut Transportation, that bus driver attitudes were a barrier to transportation for people with disabilities by means of drivers belittling people coming into their buses. And that was important. That was really important to get across to the general manager who was there at the time. Thank you again for this award.
Well, what a night. Thank you all so much for being here to celebrate the return of the 12th Annual Community Inclusion Awards. It has been truly a joy to bring this event back and to honor 8 incredible individuals who have made Braintree a more inclusive and welcoming place for everyone. Your dedication and compassion are exactly what this night is about. There are so many people who helped make tonight possible, and I want to take a moment to thank them. First, thank you to Mayor Aaron Joyce for your support, your encouragement, and your leadership. And a big thank you as well to your incredible staff in the mayor's office and to Mike, who made my message got to the right place. To Lynn McFlail, thank you for sharing so much wisdom and history about this event. It truly helped shape the evening. And to Kristen Zachello, thank you for casually mentioning these awards to me last fall. Look what that small moment has become. And also thank you to Julianne Quintiliani for kind of reminding me about these events so that we could make this event happen. To my co-chair, Kevin Berner, who wasn't able to be here tonight, thank you for your partnership and support. To Beth Brown, thank you for stepping in to help hand out awards tonight and for being such a positive presence on our CPAC board for many years. To my husband, Aaron Young, thank you for managing tech, helping with our children, and supporting me through every part of this process. I couldn't have done it without you. To the town of Braintree and Braintree Public Schools, thank you for your continued support of our inclusion in our schools and community. A special thank you to our keynote speaker, Crystal Evans, for sharing your voice, your insight, and your story with us tonight. Your words added so much meaning to this event. And of course, to our 8 outstanding award recipients, thank you for being who you are. You've each created spaces where everyone, regardless of ability, can participate, connect, and belong. You inspire us all. And before you leave, can I please make sure that our award recipients come back to the front for a group photo? Thank you again for being here tonight, for celebrating inclusion and for supporting one another. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you again next year.